Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the JRP. This week we are speaking to the Dark Emperor, otherwise known as Emperor, and he is the founder of a group that you probably know of called Imperium or EMP. So thanks very much, Emperor, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So we kind of want to jump straight into it. Obviously, people know you as the founder of the group, mainly on 2B2T. So when was it that
hmm
you first joined 2B2T? What's kind of the... I know there's many stories that you have as a group, and we're going to be getting into those. But kind of what's your individual story? How did you find the server, and when did you join?
Like most people, I found it on YouTube. I joined late 2016. I think the first message in like the Imperium Discord was on Christmas. So yeah, the Imperium started Christmas 2016, and kind of interestingly, I actually named the Imperium before I bought my Minecraft account because I had never played Minecraft before 2B. So it was kind of a steep learning curve, honestly, but it went pretty well, obviously. And yeah, here we are today.
Excellent. Okay, so kind of towards the end of 2016 was when you found the server. So between then, how did you become the founder and the leader of Imperium? What's the story behind the creation of the group?
So I thought it would be fun to run a group, and I wanted to be able to do stuff that you can only do whilst running a group. So that's why I started it. And there really
Okay.
weren't any good groups to join, and I didn't really feel like doing, following orders from some fucking squeaker. So, and all the other decent groups were either base groups at that point that weren't really letting in new fags, or I don't know. It's really only those two. There were really only squeaker factions and like base groups at that point.
Okay, squeaker factions. I like that. That's a good term. So, what were some of those things that you said about wanting to do things that only a leader of a group could do? What were some of those things that you wanted to do?
Mostly mess with other groups, honestly.
Okay.
Once we start to get into the history of Imperium, it's just like a long list of power plays and political moves, which I know is kind of role play, but I guess there's really no other way to describe them. Um,
Well, yeah. No, I mean, if there's any kind of thread across these episodes of JRP so far, it's that there's a lot of 4D chess going on Anarchy servers. There's a lot of people that are plotting. There's a lot of people who have, grand ideas, things that they want to accomplish. And sometimes, they have to have a strategy behind that as to how to accomplish those things. So definitely, no, I think it's going to sound very familiar to most people, kind of what you're saying. So with the group itself, what's kind of some of the history behind it then? Maybe from when it started to getting your first few people. Why don't you just give us kind of a brief
so
history
the
of
way
the group?
the way it started was kind of funny. I would constantly meme and chat about the Imperium when I was the only one in it. So people would be talking about like VoCo, and I was like, VoCo is pretty cool, but the Imperium is where the tits are at. That's the fucking tits, dude. That's the best group ever. And people were like, oh boy, the Imperium, that sounds cool. Can I join? And then that's how I scammed people into joining. And it was kind of funny. The first few people that showed up, the first three people that joined that were actually let in were a root beer guy, Spooky Sock Drawer, and a guy named Raz Arctic. And they were all like kind of disappointed when they first got to the base because it was just this little shithole kind of too close to spawn. And they were like, I came all the way here for this, and there's like four people in this group, including the three of us, but they were already there and they just kind of went with it. After that, we made a stash, started duping, getting more members, building up the group. Really, the main thing we tried to do at that point was stay hidden because we didn't want to deal with anyone. Yeah, not a lot went on at that point, honestly. If you look on YouTube, there's a base that was griefed relatively recently called Arrowhead. That was the
Okay.
first community base that we did, and that's probably that. There's probably more accounts logged off there than like anywhere else on 2B. Because what we would do is we would go to spawn, get new fags, bring them back to Arrowhead, and then they'd build for like a week and quit, and then a couple would stay, and that's how we kind of started initially building up the group. Yeah, that's kind of the only real early history of the Imperium. I guess some other interesting trivia is if you guys know Nordic 93,
Hmm.
the racist Norwegian man, we've known him forever. He was actually in the Fourth Reich when we met him, and that was kind of interesting because the Fourth Reich was like the super cool, edgy faction, I guess, or at least that's how all the new frags thought of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we thought he was like a big player.
Okay, so it's kind of a bit like the joining of two groups kind of coming together slightly, maybe?
Not
Getting people
really. We
from
tried
other.
to inside the Fourth Reich, but it didn't work
Oh,
very
okay.
well.
Okay, what happened with that? What's the story behind that?
I asked Nordic to join, and he said no. That's it.
Oh, okay. Great story, great story. So you kind of mentioned at first you didn't really wanna deal with anyone, as the group was
At
starting
that
off.
point, yeah,
Yeah.
because
Why was
you're
that?
really
Yeah.
vulnerable at that point because you have no
Mm.
one to trust. You have no, I guess you'd call it like a fat reserve of members.
Yep.
Because the best way to kill a group, especially young ones, is to just say you're gonna inside a little bit, and then they'll starve themselves off because they're not recruiting and all the active people quit. So once you have some momentum, once your group has been around for more than a year, the people who are gonna stay are there to stay. You know, it's really hard to kill. You kind of have to get more into the 4D chess stuff if you actually want to fuck with them. And we can, I've definitely done that a couple of times, especially with Highland. Like,
Okay.
that's kind of later chronologically, but we can start talking about that. So, do you know what Highland is?
Yeah, but for our listeners, why don't you kind of explain what it is, and then we can kind of make sure everyone knows what's going on.
So, in its heyday, Highland was like a B tier faction that had really big dreams and even bigger autism. Um, it was honestly like kind of the biggest group on 2B for a hot second, but due to mismanagement and Lotus being a raging idiot, it kind of fell apart quickly. So what happened was early Highland was like comprised of mostly adults and like kind of seasoned players a little bit,
Okay.
but over time they kind of shifted because if you know who Dialotai is, he quit. Warlord Nick, another good guy, he quit. Um, the group just as quality wise went down a whole lot, and Lotus started to kind of run the group with his ego. So what I mean by that is he wanted to be the best faction, right? And he wanted to kind of be dominant at spawn. So what he did was he just packed his fucking group with retards, and retards did what retards do. They fought, they blew shit up, and they harmed the group's reputation. And we actually kind of the one of the best fucking things we did really early on. If you know what the UGE is, the United Group Embassy, that was like that's probably like one of the best 4D chess moves ever on 2B. I'm not just saying that to jerk myself off. Like honestly, it was so good. So what we did was it was like a UN thing, right? So all groups could join. We would do projects together, yada yada yada. But what it was really for was absorbing groups and fucking over Lotus and Retronaut, who was the leader of Infrared. So we were fucking over Highland and Infrared, who were like the only other spawn fed groups at that time. So what we did, this was so smart and simple. We just bullied Lotus. So we invited Lotus and Retronaut to join the group. We just made fun of Lotus until he baby raged, and then he leaked the embassy base. That was actually like it must have had 60 or 70 people at it. It was kind of a happening place. So he baby raged. He leaked chords. Then in like one day, all of the faction community on 2B fucking hates Highland and Infrared. So right there, their reputation is tarnished. Momentum is going against them. All these groups are inciting them. And additionally to that, and the same thing happened with Infrared, but additionally to that, only the Emperium can really fight Highland at spawn. So all of these other little group members start joining up with Emperium because it's more fun. You see what I mean? So it was like in one fell swoop, we ruined our enemy and we gained like we doubled in size twice because we like almost kept little census things to see how we were doing.
Okay.
We doubled in size twice from when we started the UGE to when we ended the UGE.
That's pretty impressive. What kind of time period was that?
I want to say like half a year. It took like 6 months.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty respectable. And were you kind of focusing more on PvP then at that time when you were going against other groups?
Yeah, we were really sweating. And we only went up against it was whatever was left over of the Peacekeepers, which was hilarious at the time. Highland and Infrared, and they joined up with their own little group alliance thing. It was called the Alpha Alliance, but we like to call it the Beta Federation because that's kind of what it was.
Okay.
And you can watch this on YouTube. There's a YouTuber named Trashing Your Life who recorded It's probably one of the biggest fights ever on Tubi. If you like disregard the weird fights where it's like 37 people versus like three guys. It was, I think it's like 27 Imperium guys versus 15 Highland members. And it was honestly like one of the best fights ever. And we kind of rolled them. And that's kind of when Highland started to go downhill. And it's honestly dead now. It's like a leftover remnant of what it used to be, which is kind of sad because there's really no one left to fight at spawn on 2B. Everyone's either, fucked off or joined the Imperium.
Okay, well, so it's not a bad problem to have that you've kind of defeated everyone in the area.
Literally suffering from success.
Yes, definitely sounds like it. So,
There's
what
no one
kind of
left to
the
fight.
so kind of going on from there then. Well, I suppose if we go back a bit, because I suppose that's kind of a bit further ahead in your story. So you just started the group. You'd not been on 2B2T very long. A lot of time has gone by since then. So what would you say
Hmm.
your maybe your most famous moment as a group has been on the server so far?
Probably, I would say stuff to do with the incursions. So, starting chronologically, Incursion 6, which was arguably one of the best incursions ever from like a having fun standpoint, was kind of the Imperium's coming out party. We just kind of showed up, and we had stayed like kind of as quiet as possible. And a lot of the more elitist, snobby groups like the Spawn Masons had never heard of us, or no, they had heard of us, but it was just like, they kind of disregarded what we were doing. Just keep your head stuck in the sand so you don't have to pay attention, sort
Yeah,
of a
yeah.
thing. And yeah, so it was kind of a coming out party. People realized who had the most people, and it was funny if you know who Demon Elite is, or no,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not Demon. Yeah, it was Demon Elite. He was in the VC and he was like, "Listen, new fags, if you want this incursion to happen, if you want to be a part of 2B history, you need to shut the fuck up and suck my balls." And we were all like, "Okay, who's gonna make us?" It was kind of like one of those moments where everyone realized they have literally all the spawn PvPers, don't fuck with them, sort of a thing. And that was pretty cool. Everyone got their rocks off to that in Imperium, and it was really a good time. And then I7, which was like the fucking drama incursion. I don't know if you were around for that, but that was a fucking mess. So what we did during I6, and this was kind of we were playing with fire with this. We let Jared run literally everything because he has like these manic episodes where he'll stay awake for like 3 days at a time, just nonstop playing 2B. So we were like, let's just let this autist do all the work, and then we can fuck around and take her easy. And that's what
Hmm.
me and Henry did, probably to our own detriment. And we did this again during I7. And Jared started to get all up, and he's like, "I'm doing all the work. You guys should be sobbing my dick a little bit more. You guys suck." And eventually, if you do you know the fake police mic, but he's real in our hearts?
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, there's so many stories from back in the day, yeah.
I think he was on your podcast. I'm not sure.
He wasn't on
Um,
mine. He's done other ones. He's kind of been on the Anarchy podcast scene. He's not been on mine yet. No.
he's kind of done with Tubi anyway. So Police Mike was kind of associated with Jared, and I'm just gonna be calling him Police Mike because I never knew the real Police Mike. So when I say Police Mike, I mean the fake Police Mike. So
Okay.
Police Mike was buddy buddy with Jared in quotation marks, and he told us that Jared was planning on doing this like stupid thing where he would, I don't know, kick out all the leaders of the factions and like steal everyone's members somehow, and then make his own super faction and then destroy it, and then there would be like no more factions on 2B. I don't know how that was supposed to work, but this is your brain on autism, and Jared doesn't really know how to think very well, so he makes dumb plans. So
Okay.
we found out about this, and we nuked his Discord. The Discord was gone, and then every time he made a new one, he would like, I don't know, he would just be really racist in it. So we would just have alts in there, and like we would report him to Discord every time he like said the N word. Yeah, so we nuked the Discord. We kept getting it terminated. We kept fucking him up at spawn, and at this point, Jared knows it's us, and he's fucking seething. And this is kind of where the Jared stuff starts happening. He goes on like a non-stop doxing spree, trying to dox all of the Imperium. He spent a long time trying to dox me, but he never got it. And he just like tries to mess with the group, still to this day, really, just because he's salty that we cucked his incursion and stupid ass plan. Um, We can get a little bit more on that
Yeah,
later, but there's
sure.
just
Okay.
there's like 4 years of history to cover at this point. The next thing that happened, and arguably one of the coolest things we've ever done, was the Purge. That was when Etika started playing, and we kind of realized that he was actually flooding the queue with people. Because a lot of times with these YouTubers, they don't really do that much. But when he was streaming and like talking about it nonstop, it really created probably the biggest spike ever. A lot more than Ant Venom. Not relatively speaking, not as much as Rusher, but the queue size was getting a pretty close, like up to 3,000 people at its worst. So we wanted an efficient, effective incursion instead of dicking around making lava curtains. Because let's be honest, that's fucking stupid. Anyone who thinks I7 or I6 was meant to stop new fags is retarded. It was
I,
meant to dick
hmm.
around at spawn in a grossly large group and be in fit videos.
I suppose with the amount of people coming in, it's going to be really difficult to kind of stop new players joining, right? If you've got like 3,000 people that are just waiting to get in,
Yeah,
you're going to need
exactly.
one hell of a
And
group
then you're
to
making it
stop that.
fun for them. You're making it a challenge to like it's like playing a game of tag at that point, you
Yeah,
know?
it gives people a reason to join because they want to try and escape, right?
hmm And then you have enemy groups trying to stop you and sabotage you. And honestly, here's what you would do if you wanted to keep everyone in spawn. You would make a trench just outside the spawning area, and you would have people, circling around it, patrolling it, making sure new fags can't get out, and then you'd have people at spawn breaking end portals. That's literally it. You don't have to do anything else other than that. But people are so retarded that they don't want to patrol, so then nobody patrols, so then everything's useless. Like all the lava walls, all the trenches, all the autism that goes into an incursion is totally wasted when people don't just, look for new people to kill along the border of where you're trying to stop them. Anyway, back to the Purge. So we wanted an effective incursion. So all we did really was lag the server when Etika was on, and that's it. That's literally it. And the
And
funny thing
was
is,
that effective?
yes, he stopped playing probably because of us. He would rage every time we crashed the server because PrioQ was so bad. If you crashed it during one of his streams, he wasn't able to wait through it again. Because PrioQ was like 250. That takes like over an hour to get through.
Yeah.
He has a
Yeah.
3 hour, or I don't know how long he was streaming for, but you can't have a fucking 1 hour intermission and still keep your viewers. And then once you get in, you just get crashed again. So all in all, he was only on 2B twice.
Wow. Yeah. See,
Well,
the amount that
like
he,
streamed
yeah.
on 2B twice, but obviously he got on more. We just crashed the
Oh, for
server.
sure. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for the amount of kind of talk that was around him when he joined, the fact that he only joined a few times, that's pretty wild.
And because he killed himself, the Imperium is the only 2B faction with an official kill count. So remember that, kids.
Oh God. Okay.
Oh, my good friend Henry also is involved with the kill count. So the Spawn Masons also have a kill count of 0.5 because we split it evenly to be fair.
Okay. Right. So that's kind of some of your favorite stories. Obviously, with kind of 2B2T, there's a lot of things that get left out. There's a lot of things that aren't recorded, and as you know, I've run the blog to try and get some stories on record so they're not lost in time. This
hmm
podcast as well, people use it to come on and speak about things so they're not lost in time. What kind of stories do you have with your group, with Imperium, that you kind of want to make sure get preserved and you don't want them to be lost?
hmm Most of our major events have been written down just because we are aware that stuff gets lost and it's kind of cool to look back and see.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, maybe this would be too long to talk about, but there's like a plethora of small groups that have tried to inside the Imperium only to
Okay.
be incited and destroyed. If you
Hmm.
own a small group on 2B, leave the Imperium alone. Fucking morons. It's ridiculous.
Oh, there we go. So there's a warning to any smaller groups. So obviously we won't go into all of them, but are there like a couple of instances where this has happened that you maybe want to talk about?
Yes, Visionary, a group called Knighted, Highland, Infrared, VoCo, Dunganon, um,
And what have they tried to do? So VoCo is a pretty, well-known group across many servers. How did they try and get inside of Imperium?
So there were two events that we just kind of nicknamed the Emperium War as a meme. And the first one was really stupid. It was literally just me and Colston shit talking each other in chat and then blowing up some shitty bases of each other's. And then eventually we started talking, realized we shouldn't be fighting over it because it's dumb, and kind of became allies and worked together a little bit on that. Over time, Colston became resentful of the Imperium because VoCo members would always leave VoCo and join the Imperium because the Imperium isn't okay. This is a side tangent, but VoCo is literally the 2B equivalent of North Korea. You can't say certain words in the Discord or you get flagged and punished. Like you can't say Imperium in the VoCo Discord. It will not let you do that. That's how
Oh,
like
wow.
afraid they are of the Imperium. You can't even talk about it. So no one likes being in that environment, especially on a fucking anarchy server. People come here to do stuff and not follow rules, and then they have to follow rules in this terrible, terrible group. And even at its height, VoCo was so compartmentalized that you're in a group of allegedly 250 people, which is a total fucking lie, and you would only be at a base with like 5 people max. That's terrible.
Okay, so you're saying that not everything that was said was truthful?
Well, yeah, no group on 2B has 250 members. That's just retarded.
Yeah, I suppose that'd be quite difficult to kind of manage it. Yeah.
That's like more. I could see having 250 people in the Discord, but even inactive with ranks. If you have 250 people in your group with like group ranks, then you haven't cleared out your group in like ever. Most people are going to be inactive. You can't have a group the size of 2B itself. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, yeah, if all of your members were like the entire player count slot, yeah, that's not really going to work out.
It's really stupid. So anyway, people would join Imperium over VoCo, and they kind of had a large die off a few times just because people would fucking join Emp instead of VoCo. So Colston got really sick of it, told me to make it stop, and I was like, I'm not gonna, no, that's stupid. If people want to leave VoCo and join the Imperium, that's kind of their business. I'm not encouraging it, and I'm not going to stop it either. Maybe fix your fucking group. And he didn't really like that, so he made up this like, oh, and the thing that really tipped it over, and this is so funny. This guy named Dot, he was actually on your podcast. He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
friends with our PvPers, and they kind of palled around a little bit. So he went to kill some VoCo people in Constantium, and there were like 25 people there. And one of the main Imperium guys shot, joined along just to kind of watch and see, and that really made them mad because it was like one of our allied members or a member from an allied group came to watch us get killed, and Dot killed like all 25 of them, and then they started attacking Shot for no reason, and then he killed the rest. So it was a 2v25, and all of VoCo died, and none of the two spawn fags I think even popped the totem. So it was like a hilarious defeat, and Colston obviously baby raged because he's a man child. Um,
Okay, so it sounds like there's still kind of some beef between you and VoCo.
Not really. We kind of killed them off at the beginning of summer, and I can get a little bit more into that later. So, and also, I really have no time for people who are like adults on 2B who act like morons, like Lotus or Jared or Colsnid, because there's really no excuse for it. I can see someone like Wea is a good example. He's a kid, he's young, he's impressionable. He does stupid shit on 2B because he's a stupid kid. You know what I mean? But it's like you're 25 years old and you're like raging over blocks. I mean, to be fair, I've raged over blocks, but that's different.
Yeah, I think every player on Anarchy definitely at one point has raged over blocks or something that's going on.
But there's definitely a difference between the chronic baby men and the
Hmm.
occasional block game rager.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's going to happen to everyone at least once, but I suppose it depends. If it carries on and it's what
It's
you become
chronic,
known
yeah.
for. That's probably not a good thing.
There's a hilarious clip of Cold Snid, just berating Inferno and basically saying he's really stupid and worthless. And then someone did a remix and it's just Colsted insulting himself, basically. They like chopped it all up. It's really good.
Excellent. So
Um,
that's kind of the kind of story between your Imperium and VoCo. What are other some kind of so it sounds like there's a lot of, group against group action going on here on 2B2T.
Hmm.
What kind of are some other stories that have happened in the past, that that's happened, or what is it maybe now that the group is working towards? Because there kind of some stories from the past. What is it that Imperium are trying to do now on 2B2T? Are there any new projects? Have you
Yeah,
got any
actually,
events going on? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
right now we're so dominant in terms of like political power and spawn PvP and inciting
Okay.
that we're kind of trying to evolve a little bit and get into like base building. And we've always built bases, but we've never really done the like jewel of 2B. Oh my god, this is like the best base ever. You know, like a Bodekin
Hmm.
or Block Game Mecha or any of the like really good ones. We've had some okay ones, but like we want to do something that is kind of unprecedented, so we're working towards that. um so if there's any good builders watching this podcast, hit me up. And obviously we have a lot of good members builders already. Like if you guys know Scribble Fox or Charlie or Verl, those are all like A+ S tier builders, so that's pretty cool.
There really are some great builders on 2B2T at the minute for sure. What's kind of the style that you guys go for? Do you guys build kind of the same thing at every time you get together, or do you have like
Yes
a
and
group
no.
theme, or does everyone just kind of do what they want and you
I
kind of just
guess
put it
the
all
the
together?
closest thing to a group theme is if you've seen Empire's Edge, there's a
Hmm.
Capitol building I built where it's like the neoclassic style with like the pillars and domes.
Nice, yeah, yeah.
Whenever I'm at a base, I always do that, and a bunch of other people do that as well. So that is kind of what it looks like. So it kind of looks like a European city a lot of the time. Um, yeah, so I guess just kind of European-y, but every base is different. Obviously, people are free to start bases whenever they want. So there's always different styles. There's always different things people are doing and trying, and it's always really cool.
Excellent. So this is kind of the building side of things, and you've kind of spoken about the griefing and the insiding. Would you say it's kind of 50-50, or do you focus more on one side?
Absolutely not. If
Okay.
the Imperium was as good at building bases, we would be building, or if we were as good at building bases as we were at spawn PvP and inciting, we would have Bodekin like time or Black Game Mecha times 5 by now. I mean,
Okay.
you go to spawn right now, and I guarantee there's a couple of Imperium guys there. And if people were to show up, and if the fight were to turn sour, or even just kind of be a even 50-50, all it would take is one mention for like 20 people to hop in queue who are really good, A+ PvPers, and go to spawn and start wrecking shit. But
Excellent. So that, yeah.
we are trying to build up the other side because it's good to be well rounded and it's fun to do other stuff. And when
Yeah,
house fucks up
definitely.
the plugins and people need a break from PvP, it's good to be able to go somewhere and not like just kind of atrophy on 2B.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose you don't want to get just stuck on one thing, but yeah, no, that
Yeah.
sounds really good. It sounds, you know, quite fairly balanced. You got your focusing on PvP, and then you can spend some time on taking a break and building some things up. And it's also a warning to any new players, I suppose. As you said, there's always Imperium people at spawn, so they'll be waiting for you
Hmm.
as soon as you get through the queue.
Yeah, pretty much.
Excellent. Are there
Also,
any? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to say, is there
just
anything
a
else
real
that you
quick
wanted to
quick
mention?
funny story. If you don't want to die, don't go to 0-0. That's literally the only place people have ever been at, like waiting for people. And people always go to 0-0 because they want to see if there are people there who try to kill them. And then there are people there who try to kill them, and then they get mad for getting killed.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense. You wanna go and see if there's people at zeros who are waiting for you? Yeah, the answer is yes. The answer is
Hmm.
always yes. There's always
I
gonna be
love when
people there
people
waiting.
go through there with like shulkers. We had a guy once who went through, he had like a little stash on him. He had like a donkey with a chest on it, and it was all full of blocks, and he had his inventory full of block shulkers. And it's like, why did you do that? You could take like 30 extra seconds and go down one of the ring roads, like the Yellowstone Joe highways or one of the IIS ring roads that are even closer. It's so easy to do, and no one ever camps those. People are just dumb.
Excellent. Are there any other kind of, stories that you wanted to go into?
Hmm. Let me think. Not really, if I'm being honest. I think we
Okay,
covered
cool.
pretty much all the big stuff.
Okay,
Um,
Because I think you said there was some like undocumented kind of history and stuff like that that you wanted to make sure was out there.
Well, that's like all the big stuff that I covered.
Okay.
Um, Obviously, we've done cool bases like Empire's Edge or Tartarus. That one was kind of killed in the cradle, but it was still a cool idea.
Hmm.
Um, we were gonna do like an underground, like we blew up a huge area underground, and we made it was gonna be like an underground Greek city. Have like a really cool themed build,
Okay.
but that got pearl traced.
Oh,
And one of
okay.
the one
So
of the most
do you want to go into like pearl tracing and what it is, maybe for people listening that aren't too sure?
yeah, so
Because
pearl
it's really
tracing
simple, but
is when
it's a very simple thing, but it's quite powerful.
yes, your client recognizes when people pearl away and it gets sent a packet to where that pearl landed. So if you load your pearl in front of somebody, if they have the right client, or even if they just crash their client at the same time and look into the crash report, they're going to know where your pearl landed. And when that was coupled with the invisibility exploit that allowed people to like zip around invisible, you weren't even on tracers, like everything got fucked and people were kind of, running around with like their heads cut off. And that's kind of an interesting thing on Tubi as well. Like if you have a base, there are almost periods of time where you just fucking sweat your balls off because you know something's going around. You have no idea what it is, and then it just happens or it doesn't happen. Like one of my kind of worst griefs that ever happened, like for time wasted, was a base called Imperius. Original name I know, but what it was an N base like half a million out, and we had taken every single animal except like polar bears there because polar bears suck. And we had this cool little end base. It was like a month old, but it took so long to get ready just because it's really hard to get animals into the end. It's really hard to get items into the end. And we pulled all this stuff there. We moved the animals there. And then a month later, an unprecedented exploit happens where a bunch of fags started logging into everyone's accounts and like logging cords and griefing stuff. And that
So
was
this
the
wasn't too
authentication
long ago.
exploit.
That's it. Yeah,
Nope.
that was like a few months ago, right? Half a year ago. Okay, so yeah, so that whole pearl exploit was pretty wild. So as long as you loaded a pearl with someone else in render distance, they would be able to they would essentially be told by the game exactly where you were going.
Hmm.
And it's just great code, Mojang. Just another well done to
Well,
them.
that's better than the time they let literally anyone log into any Minecraft account using the legacy authentication servers, or however that fucking worked.
Yeah, yeah, that is very true.
So there was a group called Dunganon, and it was actually a pretty up and coming group. I think at its height, they managed to get the way I measure groups is in-game activity and VC activity because that's the most kind of accurate way to gauge stuff.
Yeah.
So I think at their height, they were averaging like 34-person VCs a day, which is fucking insane. It's not really sustainable, but for a group that's only 3 months old, that is fucking nuts.
Yeah, that's
And
impressive.
they were getting like 20, 25 people at spawn. And this is honestly the only group we kind of jumped the gun on in terms of inciting because we were worried about it. Because just on a side note, we never, ever, ever fuck with people who don't mess with us first. And I don't know, people think we're like inciting everyone for no reason, but it's like we haven't incited the last Templar, which obviously doesn't like us, but they haven't done anything, so who cares? We haven't incited IIS. It's a highway group. Who cares? We haven't incited the crafting table because, again, who cares? They don't affect us negatively, so we don't waste our time and energy being autists. So anyway, Dungeon was pretty big. They were fighting us at spawn and stuff, and what we did was send, and they were a new group, so it was kind of different. We sent a guy into inside, and within like 3 months, he was basically running everything. He didn't have ownership yet, so we couldn't just delete it or whatever. So what we did was we did a coup where this guy took over, not the Discord, but he made a new Discord and kind of funneled everyone into it. And then from there, we kicked out a bunch of Dungan people that just kind of sucked. Yeah, so we took a bunch of them, put them in a group called Exodus, and then with Exodus, we sorted them into people we wanted to keep in Imperium and people who weren't worth the time. And that's the interesting thing about absorbing groups. The vast majority of people are either not worth it or they don't stick around. So like out of a huge group, we only ended up with like 8 people, and only I think 4 are around to this day. So it's like long term, it's nothing, but really high quality people are worth it always.
So you spent a lot of time on 2B2T. You've
Hmm.
led a very successful group. You've, started lots of bases. What would be something if you could go back in time to kind of that winter of 2016 when you joined? If you could go back now and speak to yourself, what's some advice that you would give yourself? Or maybe if there's new players joining now, what's the kind of advice that you would give them? Oh,
I would
yeah,
tell
what
myself
kind of
to
what kind of advice would you give them?
buy Bitcoin, stuck up on masks and hand sanitizers,
Okay.
and no, I'm just kidding. Um, what I would do is probably tell myself not to be so fucking cautious because we lost out on a lot of opportunities just by being kind of
Hmm.
overly cautious, which when you don't know, you don't know. And we knew we didn't know, if you know what I mean. So we didn't know what we didn't know. So we just kind of took it extremely slow. And then you have someone like Hermetic Lock, who was super new to 2B, not as new as me, but he just kind of whipped the spawn masons out of his pants overnight practically. And it was this huge successful group for a time. But they've never mind. Um yeah, I would say don't my number one advice is ironically don't join a group if you're stupid because you will be used like a tool by 95% of all groups on 2B. Most groups on 2B are fucking terrible. VoCo's terrible. Any of the spawn fag groups that aren't the Imperium are terrible.
Hmm.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. There are a few nice small ones, but any of the mainstream ones are full of squeakers. They're super toxic, and they they just spend all day they spend all day in VC doxing and DDoSing each other. It's like it's not the best learning environment for children.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's gonna really get you very far either. Because
No,
eventually you just run out of people that
you
trust you, right?
trash your reputation, and then you're
Mm.
like, there's almost like an underclass on 2B of people that just are stupid or they don't care or they fuck around way too much and they can only associate with other retards.
Yeah, I've noticed that I think
Have you
because
noticed that?
there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that have quite a, infamous story on 2B2T and on Anarchy servers where, like Jared, he's known for, like, griefing and stuff like that, big griefs, and just kind of being a maniac and no one really knowing if he's lying or telling the truth or whatever. But they do things that, while you might not like them, they still command respect. You know what I mean? Like with
Hmm.
what are they called? Nerds Inc. So like, yeah, they fucked a lot of people over, and we weren't on the best terms, but there was still kind of that respect for them because they were good at what they did. Whereas now, if people are just doxing people and DDoSing people, anyone can do that. It's not really special.
Hmm.
So it's just being toxic for the sake of being toxic. Whereas, the people that are more well known for it, and have a a good reputation, even though they do bad things. Well, bad in quotes. They've kind of
Well,
got that
some
extra
of the
bit. You know
things
what I mean?
people have done on 2B is like unironically bad,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who have threatened presidents on the forums and had their Secret Service turn up at their door, like
Are you
Polly the
serious?
parrot. Yeah, so there was a player called
Oh yeah,
Polly
I
the
heard
parrot.
about that.
Yeah, on the Face Punch forums, he basically said he was going to blow up Obama or something like that, and the Secret Service reached out to Gary, like Gary of Gary's Mod, who runs Face Punch, and yeah, I think they contacted Polly. So yeah, obviously that's another tip for new players. Just be careful because if you start screwing around with famous people, that could end up quite bad.
Oh, and another thing, the only real way to hurt somebody on 2B with a dox is if you've done bad things on 2B. So if you just like don't say the N word or be racist or dox or fuck around like that, there's literally nothing anyone can do. If you get doxed, it doesn't really matter because anything they could do to you that would be, like just like that would actually hurt you is illegal. And none of
Hmm.
these fucking virgin nerds are gonna show up to your house and like beat the shit out of you. That's never gonna happen. Okay, it,
Yeah,
it kind of
yeah.
did happen that one time a long time ago with like the nerds showing up to Ormonger. I don't
Yeah,
really know
yeah, I
anything
think
about
people have
that,
seen that video.
but
Yeah, that was a bit of a meme. It wasn't necessarily where he lived, but it was it was
Did they just
pretty good meme.
take pictures of a random house for no reason?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's super
but
lame.
uh, but it made the video what it was, and but yeah, that was a
Yeah,
long
fair
time ago.
enough.
That was a long time ago. It's funny that people still remember that and talk about it. But yeah,
The
there you
pre-Russia
go.
era is so romanticized. Like everyone, people kind of go over with like a fine-tooth comb, like the pre-Russia stuff, and they just fucking suck it off so much. And there were a lot of cool stuff that happened, but there's
Mm.
also a lot of cool stuff happening now. And I
Oh,
would
for
argue
sure.
that
Yeah.
things have really gotten more on 2B. The bases are bigger, and obviously that has to do with dupes.
Hmm.
But there's more politics, there's more stuff to do, there's more activity, there's more everything on 2B.
Yeah, I think it's just the era's changed. I mean, like when I used to play every day of my waking life on 2B2T back in like 2014 and 15, things would it was a completely different server really because there wasn't as many people on, so everything was different. It was a lot
Mhm.
slower. Whereas now on 2B, like the meta has changed so much that it just changes like all the time. Like every day there's something new. Every week there's a new exploit. New dupes coming out. Things are changing all the time because there's so many players that are doing different things.
It's almost devalued activity because it's like I don't know. I think the pre-Rusher 2B would have had a much cozier feeling. There were only a couple things to do, and you kind of had to choose your lane,
Yeah,
if you
for
know what I
sure.
mean.
The
And
community
people
was a lot
definitely
smaller.
obsessed over certain things.
Yeah,
Like I don't know.
yeah.
It just kind of
I
seems like there was more autism, but also less autism,
um,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, there was more about different things, I suppose, and I mean, I was part of it as well, I guess. So yeah, no, that's definitely true. Thank you very much for your time this
Thank you
evening,
for yours.
speaking to us. No, and yeah, it's been great to kind of hear the stories of Imperium, how it started, your time on 2B2T, and your message to new players. So
My
yeah.
message to all people who are reasonably competent and can either code, build, or sing
Hmm.
is join the Imperium at discord.gg/Imperium. And that's spelled Imperium with an E. Look up the rest.
Excellent. There you go. Plug, plug, plug. But yeah, Dark Emperor, thank you very much for your time.
Yep. Thank you for yours. Have a good day.